dead of night, when all is dark, and all your daytime worries engulf you. In the dead of night, expanding your mind to the greater world about you. In the dead of night, when the night winds howl in the sacred halls of the castle walls. In the dead of night, when all is still, who will you be tonight? This is Night Talk Radio on the Terra Chat Radio Net. The following information presented tonight is submitted for your scrutiny. The opinion of the speakers may not necessarily be the opinion of the Terra Chat Radio Network or hosts. Night Talk Radio are the purveyors of information. You, the audience, shall be the judge. KVNM Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's host, Colin Knight.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Night Talk season opener. It is October the 11th, Saturday evening. We hope everybody is sat back, nice and relaxed, got the headphones on, the volume cranked, a nice refreshment at your side. Remember, the phone lines will be open all night, 347-324-3287. That's 347-324-3287. And we remind you to go to our blog at nighttalkradio.blogspot.com. I pick up all of the latest stories. Special thanks and special shout-outs going out to the Scottish lass. She's out there somewhere recuperating from flu. Hopefully she didn't catch you while she was out camping this summer. And also, let's not forget wildfire. Wildfire's out there. And heading to Edmonton to get a little bit of Ma's home cooking for the Canadian Thanksgiving. You be safe up there, Wildfire. And tonight my co-host is Chris Hawley. Good evening, Chris. Welcome back to Night Talk.
Well, good evening to you too, Colin. It's great to be back with the Night of the Canadian Rockies.
And I appreciate that. That has stuck for years, my girl, and I do appreciate you calling me that. We got lots to get to in this season, and tonight being no exception. What I thought we'd do tonight, Chris, is we'll just kind of scope out some of the stories and some of the leads that we're following, and from there we'll kind of flesh it out for the upcoming season of where we're going to go with things. Now, I got to open this with a piece that you dropped into the Night Talk Radio blog at nighttalkradio.blogspot.com. You sent me a piece regarding Nikola Tesla, one of my all-time favorite historical characters. I really enjoyed the information you put in there.
Yes, I am a tremendous fan of this man. I think I have a terrible crush on Nikola Tesla, if, he was alive today. The man, it was a genius, probably one of the biggest geniuses of our time. He was unusual in every sense of the word. However, the thing that got me going, and the reason I wrote that article, is what's going on in the world today. War, fights over oil, just terrible energy crises, people suffering because they're not able to obtain the things they need to survive. And Nikola Tesla had invented a energy power system from the earth that would provide the world free energy. Yes, I said free energy. And he developed it and built it out here on Long Island, in Wirecliff, I think is the proper way to pronounce it, near Shoreham, Long Island. And his sponsors were J.P. Morgan, the banker, and Thomas Edison was also involved heavily, as well as other very rich, wealthy men of the time. And Nikola Tesla built it, but built this tower and sort of sold it to these men as a race for radio, international radio with Europe, and a race with Marconi at the time, see who would first develop it. And he failed to really mention until after the tower was built that it was also a free energy machine, that if they were built across the world, people would be able to use the energy from the earth and the atmosphere to pull down free energy, meaning we could have this pole-like thing, from what I understand, stuck on our area where we need the energy, and these machines would provide the rest of it for us.
Right.
Well, when Edison and J.P. Morgan found out about this, that certainly would take power, but most of all, their fortune, money, away from them, because that's what they were making their money on at the time. So not only did they stop him, they went and wrecked the machine, and they tore it down. And that, to me, when I think about the people that have died in this world since that time, in coal mining incidents, in lacking food and energy, and starving and freezing to death, and war for energy, it drives me crazy that I said I wanted to punch those two men, Edison and Morgan, right in the face when I, was researching this. But I think they should have been put in jail for crimes against humanity. It was such a terrible thing.
There's definitely some argument regarding what Edison actually did with Tesla and some of Tesla's inventions. I mean, Niagara Falls is still running on Tesla technology. The power plant there still has the Tesla technology that it relies on as its base engineering principles. Nothing has changed to this day. And my understanding is that there's a couple of people in Russia that are trying to rebuild Tesla's tower to recreate this.
Let's stop right there, Colin, and pick that up. When Tesla these two men then took and drove the genius into total poverty, where he then lived totally, poor, barely enough self-alive, they did that to him. They blackballed him and destroyed him. However, when he died, all the paperwork on the things, these machines that he was building, also he had just thousands of the things going on, including energy weapons and things like that that we could use for many, many reasons, including war, which is not good, but also maybe to destroy asteroids that might come and hit us. Things like that. This man was just so brilliant. That all disappeared from his room. So somebody has it.
Well, my understanding is that the federal government are the ones that swooped in and took all of his patents and everything. So, he had the first working microwave oven. He had perfected microwave as a weapon, not as a heating device. But Tesla actually already had microwave. This is the turn of the century.
If this is true, and you're telling me the government, which I believe is true, what you just said, absolutely true, has all this information, then we have to sit back and say, they've been sitting on this free energy ability all this time, and let's count those dead bodies that have been piling up over this issue of energy and see how we feel about the government. I mean, aren't they equally now as evil as anyone else that from humanity?
Well, my opinion as far as oil and electricity is concerned. It just amazes me we can send a shuttle to the moon and back and send a rover to Mars and operate it on Mars and bring back all of the telemetry and everything. Yet to this day, we cannot come away from oil. It just does not make sense to me that we have not found a way of operating without lubrication of oil. And it's all a money game as far as I'm concerned. It's in nobody's best interest for a vehicle to run at 100 miles a gallon of gasoline. It's not in anybody's best interest financially in that business to be able to have a vehicle that would do that. The carburetors and everything that are being run, they get all excited at the fact that they can do 50 miles to the gallon, or they can do this to the gallon or that to the gallon. But it's minuscule in comparison to the capabilities of the technology that we have out there. It just makes no sense to me why we are still dependent on petroleum products to operate. I like the new, and it's got nothing to do with Nikola Tesla, really, but I like the new Tesla vehicles that are coming out, the battery-operated vehicles. They're doing some big things with battery vehicles now that I think in the next 20, 30 years are definitely going to improve the motoring enhancements around the world. But J.P. Morgan has only ever been interested in money. There has never been any other force of nature that he's ever considered himself interested in. The J.P. Morgan organization is based on money, lives for money, and that is its bloodline. So I can see those guys shutting him down.
And Thomas Edison was no saint. He was not a nice man. He was a greedy, bad person that, in my thinking, he stole a lot of Tesla's thinking and ingenuity and everything else for self-gain and helped corrupt the man's work and do everything else. He was a horrible person. And the people that paid was everybody that's been born since then up until and including now, and of course all the people that have died because of the lack of the free energy plus Plus, we have no idea of the other inventions that they gathered up in that man's room that day that could have benefited us all, so that we were all should be maybe 300 or 400 years ahead of where we are today, and it's been withheld for the greed and the power and the glory and the money of the few. So you know, knowing that machinery, it exists somewhere, how to run it, how to do it, still to this day, and it remains hidden. I just find it so sad, such a bad statement about, you know, mankind, that it's extremely upsetting. And you know, I will write about this, and you don't get much playback. In fact, people often say, who's Tesla? And you know what? In the year 2014, you need to know these things. You need to know what's been done to you, what's being done to you now, and what obviously is not going to be done for you in the foreseeable future. And that's what, you know, I wish people would like, wake up. You know, these things are real.
Well, we definitely will be doing a number of episodes on Nikola Tesla throughout the season for sure, because there's so much to look into the life of Tesla that kind of balances off where we are today, like you say, with power and energy. The question that I have, and I can't seem to find a resolution to, is where did this man's intelligence come from? Because he wasn't well educated. He didn't have a very good childhood. He was born of immigrants and born of very, very poor people. Yet this man had a genius beyond what we could accept as a human. He was much like Einstein. He was so far out there, you know.
He was much smarter than Einstein. There was a portion of, I don't know if it was his diary or just a journal he was running, which is basically the same thing, or papers found among his work. But there was, I am told by what I've read, that he did talk about many times he would be taken into a trance or in his sleep, be shown and explained exactly how an invention should work, how to build it, what to do, what it would be used for, and he would wake up, write it all down, and then do it. And that he was given these gifts, he was called by another force, you know, another something else. What that was it creation? Was it aliens? Was it another dimensional thing going on? We don't know. But he did say that did happen to him often. So, you know, think about that, and that's really a startling revelation to understand.
Well, the claim of Da Vinci claimed exactly the same thing, that he would fall asleep and he would dream of helicopters and he would dream of this, and he would wake up and he would draw them out and map them out, and they never went to production. But all of those designs and schematics were scooped up by the governments of the day and ended up, you know, hidden for hundreds of years. They've only recently opened up the fact that the helicopter, you know, is an ancient design. It's not a modern design. We've just twisted it around to modern functioning, but you know, it was designed hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
And, you know, it's very interesting. I just watched a show tonight on the History Channel, I think it was, where George Washington claimed during the Revolutionary War, when he just about was ready to give up, that the men were starving and freezing,
when he had
and there was no help. When he had the vision from the orb and the light being that not only told him that he has to move forward and how to do it, but showed him a map of what the United States would look like in the future, with dots where all the big major cities would end up across the whole country, which at that time was completely, you know, unheard of, unthought of. They weren't thinking like that.
Right.
That was very interesting. And then Thomas Jefferson was the first high official in the United States government that gave an actual report of a UFO sighting he had on one of his trips between two cities, I believe in Virginia, that he had an actual encounter. So these things have been going on from the beginning of time. But with the genius of Tesla and others like him, Michelangelo, many, many of them, you have to say to yourself, was some of this given to them to help push us ahead? Or were they placed here with us to try to push us ahead? And my thinking would be yes. Because without them, we don't go really too far. Every once in a while, we're dropped one of these super geniuses, or have many of them, and a few people have pushed us technology-wise way ahead in the world, where the mass has not.
True.
So, you have to say.
Yeah, in
you have to
2000
question
years, we did not move very, very far until the turn of the 19th century. And it seems since then, what we have today, is incredible. In the last couple of hundred years, we have come so far in development compared to where we were that there has to be some kind of divine intervention. It cannot just be man's own intelligence that has created this. Where 200 years ago, to think that we would fly a plane around the world that would carry 400 passengers, that would weigh thousands of tons in the air, was unheard of. The thought that we would go to the very depths of the ocean and map the ocean floor, 130, 150 years ago was just unheard of. Couldn't even be thought of. It wasn't until the Civil War in the United States did they attempt submarines, and they were very, very crude and very basic. Yet look where we are today. We've got mobile cities underwater floating around with the most incredible amount of firepower, destructive firepower that could ever be imagined. Who would have thought about the nuclear bomb and the A-bomb? These powers and these abilities, they cannot have come from normal intelligence. They had to come from somewhere else.
It's without question, my feelings are that there is definitely a super creative intelligence of some type that has been altering, helping, and pushing us in exactly the last 200 years a great deal. We just weren't doing it quick enough on our own. And there may be reasons for that we're just unable to understand. Maybe things are coming down the pike at us or towards us that we have to pick up our game a little bit to be able to deal with it. And that's why I think that these super minds were put here. It makes you wonder how many things exist. How far are we ahead? Only the few know about, that the rest of us will never be able to understand because maybe we will never benefit from it. But I believe that there's like two types of powers on the earth. The one that left to our own design, we stay in war and kill each other and kind of doing the same things we were doing in the Crusade. We're still killing each other and fighting over, simplistic things that we should be able to figure out. And then there's this other power that controls all these things that are taking us to the moon, or are building space stations, do know what visits us and from where maybe they come. Understands different dimensions, understands science that they just will not and do not want to put across the whole entire world yet. So, though that balance of one power and one level of being on Earth is small and very elitist and kept closed down, and the rest of us just survive.
Well, I think without doubt that, I can attest to the fact that there were certain pieces of equipment that I tested in the 80s that are just starting to break through the military, and they're just starting to admit that they have these weapons that work. One in particular, and it's not a super secret, but the sound machines that they use for riot control. Those were being tested in the 80s in Northern Ireland, and they were in the 70s in Northern Ireland, and in the 80s they were being tested in other parts of the world to see if they could actually assist in non-lethal force to stop rioting and protesters. And now it's an everyday machine that is available out there for police forces and military people. So, what the military have their hands on is probably 30 years ahead of what we have domestically or in the retail stores. I mean, look at computers, prime example. When I was growing up and going to school, we had a computer at school, but it was the size of a bungalow, and it didn't do as much as a calculator does now.
No, yeah,
and it's amazing.
It is amazing. It's very interesting, and along the line, what you're talking about. I mean, I can't help myself. I have to bring this up. Is as far as the powers that be that know what we really have and really can do, and then the average Joe that has no idea what we're talking about, which is like 90% of the population, is the HARP machine, which I believe also was Tesla's machine, and the capability that these machines might have. And I think part of them were to be developed for things like control of a city that was having a siege or something like that by calming down, I think, the people or even maybe making them fall asleep. I'm not sure of the technical part of it. Not to mention the fact that they can control weather, and also be used probably as a weapon.
Right.
Now, all these things go on every day all over the world, yet not many people are aware of it or refuse to believe it. They just don't believe it. However, you can look it up and you can go see these machines and see where they're built and eyeball them with your own eyes. They are there.
And for those out there that are not familiar with HAARP, it's HAAR, and if you Google HAARP, you'll see what we're talking about. The one in Alaska apparently has been shut down, but that's typical military to claim that when actually it's not. And there's been some argument that it is capable of creating earthquakes and controlling weather patterns. And there was I read a piece not too darn long ago that the crazy weather that we're experiencing around the world is precisely because somebody meddled with the air currents and the storm currents, and they're unable to return them back to their normal stasis, and that they've messed with the rhythm of things, and they're trying desperately to find that rhythm, to get that rhythm back, so to speak. And it makes a lot of sense because some of the crazy weather patterns that have been happening over the last few years is very startling. If it's global change, okay, I get that, but I don't buy the global warming or the global cooling as a man-made disease. I see that as a cyclical event for Mother Earth. In order to survive or in order to recharge the batteries or whatever it is that they do. So, I see that, like I say, not as a man-made event, but as an Earth event that happens in cycle. We just haven't been around long enough to record it.
Yeah. And for me, I've been studying this for years and years and years for my own particular reasons. I've been very interested in it. And the thing that got me thinking this is really bad is that years ago when some researchers really went after this HAARP machine stuff, they were able to locate about 14 of these machines across the world that they were built, and they were able to go in and fly over many of them and take pictures of them and show them to you. And there was one site I was looking at, and I had heard that there were rumors that there was one built in Puerto Rico, there's one or two in Alaska, there's another one somewhere in the country. America has more than one, a few of them, and one on Long Island. Yeah. And I thought, Long Island, I don't like that. I live on Long Island. And I went in and I looked at it, and I mapped it, and I knew the location. And the location you are not able to get to. You're closed off and kept off of it on Long Island. And when I went back and Googled it again, it had been filled in with trees so that you could no longer see the HAARP area. And then I knew, well, we're in trouble. So, yes, they exist. Everybody's using them, and they can be used as a method of war. Because remember, he who controls the weather controls the world. But if they all have them now, they're in China, they're in Europe, they're all over the world. Each person has the same capability as the other, unless two or three of them gang up on an area and they can send them, a terrible earthquake or just plain change the weather. So if you have drought, you can't feed your people. If you have flood, the areas are decimated. There's, all this damage that's been going on. I think we're in a Cold War type thing with the weather, and that everybody's playing with their HAARP machines. Now, what you also said, which is absolutely right, is the Earth is trying to do its natural cycle, and it's trying to do what it needs to do to survive. It's a living thing.
Right.
And if we're messing with that, and we are messing with the cycle and causing this terrible flux of things that maybe the Earth does not want to happen, guess what that Earth may do?
Shake is like fleas from a dog. We're fleas on a dog. That's all we are, and we're surplus to the Earth's requirements, really.
And we are fighting off more than we can chew with it. We cannot use these machines. We should not use these machines. And we have to kind of just back off and get a hold of ourselves and maybe go and search for these other technologies that would save the world, stop killing, stop starvation, stop a lot of things, and protect us from the things maybe coming at us from space.
Well,
like
you
a giant
have
asteroid.
you have heard me say this many times, I'm sure, Chris. If we diverted the money that we spend on defense around the world, and we are talking hundreds of trillions of dollars around the world, if we took that to focus on healing the sick and learning about the universe that we're in, I think we would be light years ahead of where we are today. But we're so caught up with the fact that, you know, man has to be another man with a stick, and we've got this hatred and you know, absolutely disgusting hate of other cultures and other nations and yes, other religions. And until we learn to stop that, and that's on both sides, not just us. You don't turn the other cheek and then get that cheek blown off by a missile. Once we learn what peace really is and be able to divert those funds to do something of value, I think we're going to see a big difference on Earth. Unfortunately, I doubt that it'll be in your time or mine. I don't think there's enough time for that. But sooner or later, somebody's going to have to realize the futility of war and the futility of religion.
Absolutely.
You know, if there is a super being out there, that being will make themselves known, whether you go to church or a synagogue or a mosque, no matter where you are. You know, I have the opinion that if there is a superpower out there, it doesn't matter where I talk to them, they will hear me. I don't need to go to a special building to do it.
No, that's absolutely true, and I feel that way. I'm very spiritual, and I thought about this my entire life because I've watched as terrible things took place on the earth or even in my town where I would be, you know, chilled to the bone by something so dreadful that I saw one person do to another person or even just an animal that I could barely bear it. I thought my soul would be ripped out of my body. And I would watch this stuff and say, you know, why? And then I realized, because I do know that there is a creative intelligence watching over us that is not cruel and a harsh God, but that's not the purpose of your existence here.
Exactly.
And the thing that was hard for me to grasp and swallow, and is for everyone else, and that's why there's so many, I believe, atheists in the world. They turn their back on the notion of anything spiritual at all. Can't be. You live, you die, and that's it. So I can just be a ruthless dog the whole way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're wrong. You're put here and given something that something much mightier than you can only understand. It's called free will. Yeah. And your soul is put here, and you've got tests and lessons every day of your life. And what you do with those is going to be the sum of where your soul goes next.
Right.
Because your soul is energy. Energy never dissipates. It just changes form. So your soul is going on. So if you want to be a killing animal and a dog, you're going to probably be sent back to the earth learning plane of it. And maybe for a horrible lifetime next time until you figure it out.
Right.
And those who see it and understand it and stop hurting and try to help and try to be better, like Tesla.
The Kepler satellite has identified 2,000 planets orbiting other star systems. So tonight, when you look at the night sky, realize that somebody could be looking back at you. Now, if there is a life form out there, they could be literally millions of years ahead of us. The universe is 13.7 billion years old, so a million years is nothing compared to the age of the universe. And for the most part, I think they're going to be friendly. But if they are hostile, it would be like Bambi meeting Godzilla if we ever had to fight them.
You're listening to Night Talk Radio on the TerraChat Radio Network.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Well, realize that if they're that advanced, they can reach the earth from a distant star. They are already thousands of years ahead of us in technology. And we would present no military challenge to such an advanced civilization. Now realize for the most part, there are lots of uninhabited planets with resources on them. So if they can reach the Earth, they can certainly reach other planets that are uninhabited. So for the most part, I think they're going to leave us alone. But if one of them is hostile, watch out. We would be a pushover for them. Forget all the Hollywood movies.
347-324-3287, 347-324-3287.
And as we come out of that quick reload break, we do remind you that the phone lines are open, 347-324-3287. I do have Chris back online. He fell down, go boom.
I have to tell you, every single time I talk about this subject, this happens to me, no matter whose radio show it might be.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, there are powers that be that I'm sure monitor what we have to say. We went through this on the last season of Night Talk, and when a couple of my guests got too close to the truth, they started experiencing some very, very strange anomalies. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if somebody's trying to slow down the information highway. I wouldn't be at all surprised at all, Chris.
Yeah.
But let's just shift away from Tesla for a while, because we are going to do a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
We are going to do a couple of episodes of Tesla over the next 16 weeks or so. But let me ask you this. I have personally read quite a lot in the last 6 months regarding paranormal events, seeing UFOs in the skies, and very strange things happening around, especially around North America, but also around the world. What do you think? Are we coming to a pinnacle of something? Do you think there's going to be a paranormal or a UFO revelation in the next little while with all of the activity?
No. And I know people did that. I surprised you because that's what I write about. That's what I'm known for. That's my thing. UFOs and abduction and lost time. That's my specialty, although I'm into everything. And surprisingly, I think it's going to continue exactly the way it is, because that's the way they being those who control these subjects, want it to be. And as long as we go on having millions of people and blogs and shows and TV shows that are mixed in with some that are fabulous and really give you a lot of wonderful information, mixed in with those that are ridiculous, and they want me want to put my head down and shake it and say, oh, good God, are they serious? As long as that chaos continues, and the chaos of everything that's in the skies or beings that are not recognizable, everything in one pot. As long as they can keep it in that pot, stirring it up, they don't have to give us any answers whatsoever. And not only does that benefit the powers that have the information and the people that are controlling our space program, which, by the way, are privatized. They are not government-run anymore. They are privatized companies doing this. And the aliens involved, or the other beings involved, like it exactly the way it is. And the only time that's going to change, and I'm sorry, guys, the ones that are running around beating your brains looking for disclosure, it's not going to happen. Not until they decide it's going to happen. And we are far from that point. We're just too savage and too uncivilized at this point.
So you think that the disclosures that are coming out are controlled disclosures, or agent provocateurs trying to throw out the disinformation?
I think they feed it to them people a little at a time, and they feed you a little bit so that you're talking about it, and they allow people that really do know what they're talking about to write, have shows and things like that, and they feed you a little bit of information at a time. And think about this. Then all of a sudden, boom, it stops, and a ridiculous movie comes out, or a bunch of different ridiculous shows come out, and they control it, and they smooth it back out again. So the chaos is continued, and that's for two reasons. They don't want you to really know the truth, but they don't want you to be totally, fall to your knees and have a heart attack in the street when they decide to eat a little more and a little more. So they're getting you ready, but you're not ready yet.
Yeah, we still haven't resolved Roswell. So, I mean, that was in 1947, and we still haven't resolved the Battle of L.A. Total deniability by the government, yet there's thousands of photographs and identificators that, make you question it. But that information, I agree, still isn't out there as a confirmed. Don't know why we have to wait for the government to confirm something has happened or something is happening.
Because the government isn't in charge.
Yeah.
The government isn't in. There's not a military, even our military, which is, I think it's like, what were we, like 30 or 50 years ahead of the rest of the world in our capabilities? You would know this better than me, that we are such an advanced military in the United States. We do what the people that come from somewhere else that have the technology to visit us, do what they want with us, and then leave, they're the ones calling the shot. There's not one thing we could do against them. They could, from the moon, wipe us out in a few seconds.
The Kepler satellite has identified 2,000 planets orbiting other star systems. So tonight, when you look at the night sky, realize that somebody could be looking back at you. Now, if there is a life form out there, they could be literally millions of years ahead of us. The universe is 13.7 billion years old, so a million years is nothing compared to the age of the universe. And for the most part, I think they're going to be friendly. But if they are hostile, it would be like Bambi meeting Godzilla if we ever had to fight them.
You're listening to Night Talk Radio on the TerraChat Radio Network.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Well, realize that if they're that advanced, they can reach the Earth from a distant star. They are already thousands of years ahead of us in technology. And we would present no military challenge to such an advanced civilization. Now realize, for the most part, there are lots of uninhabited planets with resources on them. So if they can reach the Earth, they can certainly reach other planets that are uninhabited. So for the most part, I think they're going to leave us alone. But if one of them is hostile, watch out. We would be a pushover for them. Forget all the Hollywood movies.
347-324-3287, 347-324-3287.
I laugh like crazy when I would go into these forums and listen to these adults discussing how they're going to do guerrilla warfare against aliens. The time comes, I go, what are you guys all smoking some really good grass? Because that's not the way this goes.
No, I have a feeling.
So advanced. Yeah. No, they're going to, you won't know what hit you. You just be gone if that's the case. They are using us for whatever purpose suits their needs at the rate and speed they want to, and that's the way it's going to stay. And for our government's involvement, I think they have agreed to allow this to take place, and I mean, the animal mutilation thing, people missing. I mean, why is it like the same amount of millions of people go missing around the world every year, just, exactly almost the same numbers that you never hear or see from again? I think all of these things are treaties or deals that we didn't agree to, that we were told was going to take place, and we could go about the business of the earth, but they're going to do their thing, so you might as well like it because your other choice is to lump it. And in some of the countries of the world that these things are going on, they were benefited by technical advancement that was probably given to them. Or if you agreed to help them do whatever they wanted to do and they needed some human biological material to do it, we looked the other way, or in some cases even help, because we had no choice. So, we're doing best we can, but there's no defense against them. When they're ready, it'll advance to another point. But right now, we don't understand the Earth. Our other conversation, we don't even understand why we're here. We don't understand the meaning of our own lives or what we're supposed to be doing with it. We're still mad and angry at everybody instead of thinking it out. So we are in no shape or form ready, able, or in the same kind of, place as these advanced, maybe million years older than us civilizations. We're just doing, we're just staying alive. We're just keeping the boat float.
And we most certainly will be digging into that over the next few weeks and a few months to find out what exactly is happening out there as best as we can, given the information that we've received. I tell you what, Chris, let's do a quick 1:45 break, and when we come back, we'll get to the paranormal, because believe it or not, we've got 15 minutes of the show left, so we're just banging through here at an incredible pace, and I want to touch on the paranormal, because that's going to be part of our game plan too this year.
Absolutely.
There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? God put it there.
Nostradamus and the Antichrist, code named Mabus, with John Hogue in the night.
According to Genesis, Eden, or Eden, is where Adam was created from dust and Eve from one of his ribs. Others, however, have a more high-tech version of how human life began.
It is a real phenomenon, and there's quite a few of us, and some of us are privileged to have been briefed on some of it. It's been well covered up by all of our governments for the last 60 years or so, but slowly it's leaked out.
347-324-3287, 347-324-3287. And we remind our listeners of the archived shows, 3 years of fabulous interviews of some amazing guests. Come to the blog. nighttalkradio.blogspot.com.
So, Chris, let's have a look at this paranormal. I got to tell you, that this stuff sometimes freaks me out, but more importantly, there's something to it. I don't know what it is. I haven't been able to put my finger on it, but the more I look at the paranormal and ghosts and other dimensions, I have to say that
I believe.
Do you think we're going to move ahead on understanding what the heck's going on with this phenomenon?
Well, there's no reason why we shouldn't. And here's some good news on this side, is I have come across a few, and I mean a few, people that are really doing research in a serious manner. One man is Richard Palmisano, I think. I say his name wrong. But he's a friend of mine. He's in Canada, and the Canadian government uses him to look into haunted areas that Canada is, suffering with because people won't go there or whatever.
Right.
And he's laying it out where, he does this seriously. It's not a bunch of kids going to a property, and he has rules and regulations on how you do these investigations because he's trying to break it down and figure out what's going on. And he has some very interesting theories about it all. Oh, and yes, I think we can actually get Richard to come on and speak with, have a nice show with us if you would like, because he's very interesting. And I do think, again, paranormal that you're talking about is super creepy, and one of the reasons that I had a hard time getting into it was because it's super creepy. And I had a couple of experiences that at first frightened me terribly, and until I could get a hold of my own self and wrap my head around it, I couldn't deal with it, but I finally did. And it's also suffering from everything thrown in the same pot and nothing being broken down so that you could look at each thing. First of all, there's ghosts. Well, there's a few different types of ghosts, and we'll get into this, and, we don't have time tonight. And then there's shadow people. Well, they're not ghosts. I don't think they were ever living beings. And you've got evil things and probably alien things that are portraying themselves as ghostly things that aren't at all. And then you have dimensional creatures. So you have to break that all down so that you know what you're dealing with, and then deal with each thing separately and differently. And that's my problem with the paranormal, is people will go get a keg and turn it into a kegger party. They go to some haunted house, and they have no idea what they're dealing with, or if they're going to bring it home to their own house, or if it's going to kill them that night, or what's going on. So it's a really interesting subject, but it has to be handled in a very special way.
There is a show. Sorry, go ahead. There is a show on TV that is so sci-fi it's out of this world, but it's called Resurrection, where dead people are coming back in solid form and blah 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 blah. And I'm not sure. The government, of course, have got their fingers in it in this show. So it's like Mulder chasing around the paranormal and the UFOs. It's all Hollywood fiction, but the premise is definitely something that really has a cult following now, I think, and I think people are starting to realize that there's more to this earth than just flesh and blood as we walk about. That there's more to us. The sum of our parts are incredible.
Well, I think that's something that we really need to get into probably quickly in the next coming months, because young people especially are getting deeply involved into this ghost stuff and ghost hunting and ghost this and ghost that. And actually, it could be very dangerous for them on a lot of levels, including messing with their own soul. And they need to understand different type of spirit and ghosts and why they're there. And there's some wonderful ghosts, which are the spirits of the people that loved them that passed, their guardians, their guardian angels, all types of things like this going on. And that's one thing, and that's wonderful. And then there are ghosts that are trapped here for reasons that are not so wonderful, and they are not equipped in any shape, form to go in and deal with that type of thing. So we really need to, talk about that. And Richard can come on and explain how he does it. He's very particular how he does a ghost hunt, and he's found some very interesting things.
I think as we move into the season and we start bringing the guests up, we have a lot of really good guests already almost in place, so we'll be looking forward to those. But as we start building the season up, we will be going in and out of all of these terms that we've used tonight: the paranormal, the dimensional shift, ghosts, UFOs, extraterrestrials. We'll be looking at all of that, including a lot of earthbound things such as Bigfoot, and whether there is a Loch Ness monster or not. There's some argument that there is, and there's some argument that there isn't. So we'll be looking at that too. I have a gentleman from Scotland that'll be coming on the show in the next couple of months, and he's going to give us that definitive answer on what he saw as a young lad round about Loch Ness and what have you. So that's going to be interesting. So we've got lots on the plate, and it's going to be a very interesting time sorting all of these out and getting them to air and allowing our listeners and our readers over on Night Talk blog, nighttalkradio.blogspot.com is going to be carrying a lot of these stories to kind of flesh out how we talk. And this particular show will be on YouTube around about the end of Saturday, I believe it goes up onto YouTube, so it can be replayed. And of course we have archives on Blog Talk Radio where the show can be played over and over and over again. So as our guests line up and as we set them in place, Chris, I think we've got a fairly active season ahead of us.
Absolutely. And I'm also going to be playing things on my Facebook. You'll be able to find us there on my Facebook and my own blog, which you just do Chris Holly, and I come up Facebook or in any search engine, and you can follow us around and see what we're doing. I'm excited about the Bigfoot encounter we're going to talk about, Colin, because a man that totally had no interest in the paranormal before, and he was faced off with two young Bigfoot creatures that almost got him and killed him, and it's an amazing story that'll scare the daylight out of you. So I can't wait to bring him on, the Mike Woolley, and speak to him and have him tell us the event again. It's incredible. So anyone that's interested, you have to have that show. It'll keep you out of the woods.
Keep you out of the woods for sure. Chris, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to sign off with you, and we'll close up the show, and we'll talk to you on the next edition of Night Talk Radio.
Absolutely. We'll be looking forward to it.
You take care of yourself.
Good night, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Holly from Endless Journey blog, and as she said, you just type in Chris Holly in any search engine, and you'll find her blog out there. Some fantastic stories, some that'll curl your toes, and some that'll make you giggle and make you laugh, and just interesting stuff that allows your mind to actually explore the possibilities of what actually is out there, what could be out there. And over the next 16 weeks or so, we hope to bring you guests and appearances of some pretty interesting stuff, some stuff that you may not have heard before, and of course we'll have some of our regular guests from the previous season back on. One in particular, Mr. John Hogue Prophecy. We'll definitely be going back and having a look at the Nostradamus prophecies, and I'm sure we'll have a couple of nuclear physicists and some space physicists on over the next couple of months, and of course we'll be delving into the paranormal, and we'll be looking at the other side and the other dimension, and all of that on Night Talk Radio over the next season. So we hope you will stay with us. Saturday night is not our normal slot, and we will be announcing the next month and a half, 2 month series of events once we have found a location where we want to sit and stay, nice little comfortable place where we can get maximum coverage on our listeners. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and you'll see Night Talk Radio on a regular slot coming up very, very shortly. And we will announce the regular shot time on nighttalkradio.blogspot.com, also on Facebook, also on Chris Holly's page. So, you've got lots of places to look around and find Night Talk Radio as we come back alive for another season. And to all of those people that have listened to us in the past, we appreciate you. Do invite you as we move into the season to make use of the guest call-in line, and we will remind you for the next time it is 347-324-3287. So we do invite you to make that call into the show. It's always a good time, and there is no story that is too outlandish. So if you have a spectacular story you'd like to talk to us about, then you can either hit us on the guest call-in line, or you can send me an email at terrorchatnet2012@gmail.com. gmail.com.
Or nighttalkradio@gmail.com. Night with a K.
Or, of course, you can kick into our political site, vocr2012@gmail.com. So until the next show, which will be within the next 7 days, I bid you adieu.
We all have busy lives and responsibilities, both financially and personally. Some of us have been more fortunate than others and have made or are making a fairly decent living. And then there are those who, for no fault of their own, have fallen upon hard times. Give a moment to think of these people. Take time to help in any small way. Maybe donate food to your local food bank, or coats for which family have grown out of, or just a kind word and a smile as you see them throughout the day. Give generously of your time to loved ones, and hold your children in love every single day. Give kindness to your fellow man for no other reason than you can. You shall make a difference. You have been listening to an edition of Night Talk Radio. We appreciate your time and look forward to you on the next episode. Make sure you check the blog, nighttalkradio.blogspot.com. In the meantime, in between time, that's it, that's all. Another edition of Night Talk Radio.